Hello everyone. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate that can hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. And here we are with Swapnil, who I think has been extremely determined right through his journey while preparing for CAT. So let's hear a little from him.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So Swapnil is a graduate from BITS Goa, and after finishing his graduation, he then went on to work with Citibank. Has been working for 2 years, I believe.
2.5
2 and a half years. So what got you to, begin your preparation for CAT, and how long have you been preparing?
So I had done a dual degree course from BITS Goa, which was an MSc in Economics and B in Mechanical. And because of MSc in Economics, I got attracted to the world of finance. So I got to intern with JP Morgan for 1 year.
Okay.
Now that 1 year was one of those forming years in my life where I got to see how a bank works from a very, very near distance. And I got to see the different kind of profiles on offer. At that point of time, what I saw was an MBA was extremely important if you want to be in a client facing role, if you want to be in exact touch with the business, ground touch with the business. And that were my forming years when I thought an MBA would actually augment what I had done. MSc Economics had given me a very strong foothold when it came to understanding how the business works, but MBA would be that extra add-on which will make my personality complete, not only in terms of analyzing the technicalities of business, but also in grooming myself so that I am a good fit when it comes for business to actually expand.
So this began when you were in college. I mean, that's the time you had started thinking of probably an MBA.
Yes, I had.
Okay. So do you think getting a work experience actually helped you to, get the decision better?
Yes, it actually did, because what happens is I've seen a lot of my friends who directly went on to do an MBA. When you directly go out of a college to do an MBA, you have a very theoretical foundation of business. You only know profit maximization as one of the most important motives of business. But how does it actually happen in practicality? Some subjects like organizational behavior, it's not that you only end up rote learning a lot of theories, but when you actually see an organization at work, your perspective and your outlook towards understanding those theories was also different. So I think a work experience definitely adds on to what you learn in business. A classic case was when I'd gone for an internship at power plant as well. So this was before I actually learned how a power plant works.
Okay.
So when the course came in the following semester, I had actually seen all the boilers and the components firsthand. So I never had to study for course. So I just used to go to the class, practice a few of problems, and that's what I'd be done within an hour or so.
So some sort of experience definitely adds on to your learning experience is what you're trying to say.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So when did you start your preparation for CAT?
So my first attempt at CAT was 2016. So I had started around April 2016. So that was my first attempt at CAT. Then consequently I had 2 more attempts, 16, 17 and 18.
Okay. And your story about meeting sir was also very interesting. I think you're in the same hall. Maybe you could tell the viewers more about it.
So what had happened was one of my friends had taken CAT in 2017. He was also a colleague of mine then, and he had told me about sir. And when I actually went to the hall, sir was standing right in front of me. Because he had told me so much about sir, I had googled up sir's profile, and then I approached sir and told him, sir, one of my friends actually knows you. And that was my first interaction with sir. Little did I know that the saga would go on for a very nice thing and for 1 more year.
Yes, because he came back, and when he came back home, he was talking about you, and I think he told me that he met a student from BITS and he was sharing his experience. So you joined for our online program. How good was it in terms of why not a classroom program? Why did you opt for an online class? And I'm sure there must have been many challenges at work because you ran a very hectic schedule. So if you could discuss that.
My primary motivation of joining an online program was balancing work with the preparation I was doing. So my office timings were from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. and the morning slot was only when I could take an online or an offline program. And that was also the only slot where I could actually study for something.
Right.
So an online program fit perfectly with my schedule. It was later in the night so that most of the working professionals could work. And also on most of the days I would be done with my work so I could attend it. So the morning was reserved for studying, solving mock tests, going for sectional tests and reading a lot.
So how did you manage your morning? I mean, what did you study? And you said that you wrote the CAT before in 2017. So when you said you want to write 2018 and you said this is what I'm going to do besides study on my own, what is it that you studied on your own is what we'd like to you're from?
So in my previous 2 attempts, what I had done was I had studied all the concepts beforehand. So when it came to understanding concepts, that was not a very big problem. The problem was how do you end up solving the paper? Because I had put my 100% in solving, in understanding all the concepts. But when the output used to come, it was a subpar output. So when it came to understanding strategies, what I used to do, I used to meet sir and yourself, ma'am. I would understand the strategies from you. I'd go back home in the morning. Maybe I'll take a test today. I'll probably start taking a test from 9 to 12 p.m. After 12 p.m. I'd rush to office, come back, and then analyze the test for 1 or next 2 days. So my morning was predominantly taking tests and analyzing it. And if there are some concepts which are not well understood or which are understood in a slightly suboptimal way, I would spend that time in understanding it.
How was your LRDI preparation? Because you prepare something, but the exam throws in fresh surprises every time.
LRDI never surprised me because I always flunked it in the first 2 attempts of my CAT. So I approached sir, I remember, and I told him, sir, LRDI and VA, these are like the only 2 things that are pulling me back. Quant was manageable. So what sir told me, as in LRDI always throws a surprise. So there is no fixed way of going about it. And he gave me a very good piece of advice, is do not attach your ego to one particular sum. If you are able to crack that sum within first 2 minutes, you go ahead, do it, else skip the sum. It took me a bit of time to get used to that thing, as in because I was so used to solving my own way, and getting used to the new way was a bit different. But yeah, eventually I picked it up. What sir also told me was to solve Sudokus and Kakura and different kind of puzzles. So every morning it was my schedule. I would open a couple of newspapers that used to come to my place. I would solve all the Sudokus, all the Kakurus. I also downloaded a Sudoku and Kakuru app on my phone. Sometimes I actually used to time. A different way I also tried was I would open multiple Sudoku and Kakuru puzzles at the same time.
Okay.
And then I would start solving one. The moment I would get stuck in one, I would switch on to the next puzzle. This was just so that I could master the art of leaving a caselet within 2 minutes.
Oh, great.
So that is what I used to do.
Okay. What about VA preparation?
VA preparation, ma'am, you and sir helped me a lot. The biggest factor what I think has helped me was reading a lot. I read incessantly, whether it was Eon, Nautilus, you said multiple links. So I would go and keep on reading. I read a lot of books as well.
So when would we read? Because you said that you had to work 1 to 9. So the reading was in the morning or was it in the night?
Reading was while traveling, to and fro work. Reading was also used to happen when I would take a small amount of break in the work. There used to be a couple of times when there were process related things that were happening in the work, and all I had to do was sit in front of the computer. So I would probably switch on my phone and then read a couple of articles here and there.
Okay.
But I used to read a lot. Even at night, I used to spend at least 1.5 hours just reading random articles.
I also remember that you were somebody who was very serious about your paper analysis. You would come back, analyze your papers thoroughly. I mean, whatever mocks that you would write. If you could explain how you would do it as a student and what were the learnings you would take, how would you implement it?
So what I would do, I would probably take the test from say 2 to 5 or 9 to 12 depending. I would take the test in both the slots so that I'm used to that particular timing. After that I would take an hour or 2 break. I'd probably go for a jogging if it's in the evening. Then I'd come back and I'd start analyzing each question one by one.
Okay.
So I had maintained a book. First time I'd done it in Excel, but the amount of the connect I had with Excel was lesser than the kind of connect when I used to actually write down. So I would make different columns saying question, attempted or not, how long it took, because most of the test series they give you that section, whether it was right or wrong, if it was wrong, why it was wrong, if it was right, why it was right, and an alternate solution what the test series would provide. I would do this for each and every question out over there, and then after the end of each section I would write what is that I did correctly in this section, what is that I did wrongly, and how can I improve. And finally I would summarize and I would just club everything once and show it to you and sir, and told you that this is what my learnings were. And then based on your inputs, I would go back, I would take a couple of mock tests once again. So what I always used to do was, I would give myself 3 or 4 mocks.
Okay.
Because say ma'am, you tell me one strategy, there's a very good chance when it actually comes that strategy is implemented partially.
Correct.
So I would give myself 3 or 4 mocks so that I can get to see whether the strategy is actually working for me.
So how many mocks did you write in all?
I'm more of a number and a quality game, so if I were to add in 2018 only, I would have written close to 40-50 mocks.
Okay, so what is it? What is the advice? Should you write so many mocks? or it's not, though you're a number person, it's not just about the number, it's something more. What would you
It
say?
is definitely about quality. There is no point of just writing a mock and forgetting about what has happened. You need to invest an equal amount of time in understanding what has gone wrong. For a person like me, it is very important to identify what kind of a person you are. For a person like me, the strategy would not get implemented the very first go. So I had to keep on pushing myself, and that would increase the number of attempts I had. But it is very important that you identify yourself whether you are more of a number person or a quality person. It is not necessary that you have to write more than 20 odd mocks in order to succeed. I have seen people who have written less than 10 mocks and they have made it to IIM Ahmedabad. But again, the biggest important factor is identify. For me, it was the number of mocks so as to perfect the strategy. For you, it might be completely different.
Okay, what about questions like jumble para, odd man out? Because these questions really terrorize students, and irrespective of whatever they practice, perhaps they are not satisfied in this stage. I'm not talking about the exam. How did you practice your jumble para?
There are two ways of practicing jumbled para. First, you have to understand what the author is saying. The jumbled paragraph wouldn't be a random paragraph. It would have some amount of central idea. The more you read, the better you're used to the way sentences are formed.
Right.
The second case of identifying those structured words or connecting words. Very, very few times you would see a paragraph starting with although. There would generally be, unless and until it's a super tough question, it might start with although.
Correct.
But generally it would have some preceding sentence.
So there's an anchor statement around which everything revolves.
Yeah, there's an anchor statement. So the idea is, you read a lot, you read different types of material, but don't read blindly. Be very attentive to the fact how that author is writing the paragraph. How is it writing? Maybe you can write as well, that actually improves. For example, at work I had to write a lot of emails. So writing also improved because of reading. So the more you read, the better you have understanding of not only the content but also the organization of the paragraph. Keeping this in mind, you can probably solve jumbled paragraphs. Again, as ma'am says, and sir says, do not invest a lot of time in it. If you're not able to crack it, move on. It's as simple as that.
So you've implemented a number of strategies. What happened on D-Day? Was it what you had planned? Did it go as per plan, or things fell out of place?
On D-Day, things pretty much well on the plan. For example, in my last two attempts as well, I had seen verbal paper went really well, but when the results came out, the paper did not it did not agree with what my analysis was. So on the D-Day, what I did was, I followed exactly the same strategy. I did not rush through a lot of things. It came to R's, for example, verbal RCs or jumbled paragraph. I took time to understand what the paragraph. Again, reading helps. If you have read a lot, understanding becomes faster, and there is no need. It's reading comprehension. It's not reading speed. That is what the exam tests. So the more you read, the better you understand the paragraph. So that is what I did. I went through the paragraphs, and because I had read a lot, some of the ideas in the paragraphs were actually some of the ideas I had seen before. So you can understand the paragraph well. Thankfully, this time jumbled paragraphs had only 4 sentences and not 5, so the number of possibilities also went down. Odd man out was also decently easy. It was also important that I was always told that when you switch between the sections, when the VA section gets over, it gets over for that attempt. You have no control over it. All you have control over is LRDI and quant section. So you need to draw a thick boundary between VA and LRDI. When I went to LRDI, again, my strategy was the same thing. 2 minutes per caselet. If you're able to solve it. No, not solve it, go ahead. First 2-3 caselets I was able to solve. So thankfully, my confidence got boosted then that the paper is going well. The next couple of caselets were difficult, so I just started solving for 2 minutes and skipped. After I was done with my round 1, I came back and tried to pick up all the medium hanging fruits because all the low hanging fruits were done. I was able to solve around 15 odd questions in LRDI with a good amount of accuracy. And then I went to quants. Again, this time I was paper 1, slot 1 guy. What I saw was quants this time was tough. What happens is, if you practice a lot, it gives you the confidence that if the problem in front of you is tough for you, it's going to be tough for 99% of the people around. So that gave me the confidence, and I started with my quants, and it was a very interesting thing that happened in quants. I looked at question number 1, tough, skip, second, skip, third, and went to question number 20. Ideally, what happens is you lose your calm then. I just put my head down for 2 minutes and say, this is tough for me, this is tough for everyone. This is not a number game, this is more of an accuracy game right now. Put down that for 2 minutes, I came back, I was able to solve around 25-26 questions, and I felt really happy.
So where did this self-actualization happen? I mean, how did it happen? It normally would not happen in most cases, you just panic and things like that. So what is it? Is it writing a lot of mocks? Is it the analysis that helped you to gauge, the level of questions? Or is it that some amount of talking that you had done before the paper? So what actually helped you to stay calm throughout? Because see, it's also you writing the paper again. And I'm sure it becomes this case of make or break. I want to put in my best. And so were there all these anxieties that you faced?
The anxiety was there. In fact, there came a point where friends with whom I studied for CAT in my first attempt were actually started studying for their placements, and I was still solving reading comprehension and jumbled paragraphs. So yes, that anxiety was there, but the idea is to control that anxiety. As to how I went about doing it, one thing that I felt in the more number of mocks that I wrote, I got exposed to a lot of cases. There were cases where I was not even able to solve a single LRDI caselet in one of the mocks. Those moments, one thing that this is a mock, this is not going to make or break the deal, but at least you get exposed to a situation. If this kind of a circumstance arises in the future, what is expected to do? How I actually prepared on the D-Day for a week or so before the actual date of the exam, I used to write about how I would keep on how I would attempt the paper. I would take a page of paper whenever I'd feel anxious. I would just jot down all the points. Start with VAR. See, this is how you attempt a paragraph. If you're not able to attempt it, stay calm. I would even write stay calm. All those fillers. So I would keep on writing. I would keep on reading them. I would speak to myself about it, and I ensured that I slept well before my exam.
Okay. And maybe the last question, what would you tell students? What should they do a few days before the exam? What advice would you give them?
Few days before what one must realize is the biggest preparation of the exam in terms of concepts doesn't happen a week or two before. It happens in the biggest part that comes, maybe 3 or 4 months before. So take those 3 or 4 months before to understand and drill down all the concepts you have. The few days before the exams is when your mental preparation happens. So CAT is as much about, say, all those concepts over there as it is about the mental preparation. So first few days before the exam, give yourself a good amount of time to go back with the learnings over all your mocks, see what you did wrong, see what you did right, speak to people, speak to ma'am and sir, they would definitely help you. You also take that time to mentally prepare yourself for two kind of concerns. One case is when the paper is going exactly according to you. Second case, the paper is not going exactly according to you. The second case is a lot more important because you tend to panic, and when you tend to panic, the battle is half lost.
Right.
And the first case, as well as sir says, never try to predict the paper. There is no point. Say IIM Lucknow is going to set it or IIM Bangalore is going to set it. That does not determine how the paper is going to be. It's a myth reading about it. Prepare yourself emotionally, mentally about what is going to come.
And perhaps you've also written an answer related to your scores, the 10th and 12th. So a lot of people have been asking questions that I've scored XYZ, what should be my percentile? And I think you've written an answer about it. So maybe if you could also, in a nutshell, explain that.
I was one of those people. What had happened was I had studied very well in 10th. I had a good percentage then. Come 12th, I focused a lot more on my engineering test. And 12th, during my days, this is 2011, it was basically a qualifier exam. It had no weightage when it came to engineering admissions. So I did not end up scoring well. I scored a 79.00%. Both my 10th and 12th came from state board. And when I went to BITS, I realized it was almost a give up situation. You had to score extremely well if you wanted to make it to IIMs. And that is when I realized, okay, fine, things have gotten out of control. What I did after that was, the only thing that was in my control was my undergraduate score, which I actually put a lot of efforts in making the graph go up. There was, the only part where the graph did not go up was when it went steady. I never let it drip down. And that was a point it was identified in my IIM-Bangalore interview as well. But the thing was, I read incessantly on Quora about I have scored X% in 10th, Y% in 12th. How much should I need to score in CAT in order to qualify for older IIMs or the IIMs in general? The answer is nobody knows the answer to that question. The criteria changes every year. There are a lot of factors which are not in your control. Your profile matters. So what you need to do is you just need to increase your CAT score. What are the things that you have in hand? If you are working, the amount of work experience, the quality of work experience is in your hand. And if you are going to take CAT, the score is in your hand. My only piece of advice would be try maximizing them. What I'd said in answer was, somebody says a 99.7 percentile actually it will help you qualify for the exam. My first question is, how would you identify you have scored 99.7 in actual exam? Even if by some miracle you actually do, would you actually stop attempting more paper if you have time? No, you would go and attempt more. So the idea is attempt more, have faith in your struggles and wait for the best results.
Thank you, Swapnil. It was really nice talking to you, and all the best as you move into IIM Bangalore.
Thank you, ma'am.